questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. All right, Michael and Ashley.
Oh, I have a question. Ashley also has a question, and I am going to let her go first because her question, or your answer to her question, may actually answer my question.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, go ahead.
I was hoping he was going to go first. My question is, I asked this a while ago, and I really cannot remember what Rabbi Tom has said. It was during one of his teachings, and I can't remember where it was at. But as you know, I like to can and home preserve and dehydrate and freeze dry, stuff like that.
Right.
It's just a passion of mine, and every time I try to get out of it, I get pulled right back in, either Agnes's health or something.
Right.
My question is, why is it when I get more close, like I can feel like the Father right next to me, like how my husband's hand is on my back. I can like literally feel Yahweh's hand on my back. Like I can have a real conversation, and I think it's him because he says a lot of the things you say, and then a lot of the things we read in Scripture, and it's not really anything like the weather or anything like that, but it's how do I, other than just canning, how do I keep that relationship going? Because it feels like it only pops up when I do that. That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't know.
All right, so this is like when I told the story about the guy who was vacuuming at Sukkot, and he said that Yahweh talked to him when he was vacuuming, and he didn't really like vacuuming, but it was just that Yahweh seemed to talk to him. Look, when you're doing something, I'm just guessing in your particular case, you're doing something that's selfless, it's not really what you wanted to be doing, like you're trying to get out of it, but it does take two things. One is a caring, because that's why you're doing it, because somebody needed it. And the other thing is, it occupies a lot of your mind, kind of like an ADD person needs to have happen, so that you can allow other things to be playing out, because your mind is occupied doing all of the tasks that are related to canning, that he now has that distracted part of your head busy so he can talk to you. Okay? Which is why a lot of times people might find that you feel like he's talking to you, or you feel connected when you're sort of busy doing something. But it's something that once you're doing it, you've done it so much, it doesn't really require that much active attention, but it's got enough of your attention so that you're able to then focus. I mean, I'm that way when it comes to like when I'm doing work. I have to have something playing in the background or some other thing happening so that I can concentrate. So you're focusing enough attention on something you've done so much of, so you don't really need to focus that much on it. You're doing your different things, that then maybe that's where he can talk to you.
Okay, can I bring him how do I bring him everywhere else I go?
Look, I don't know, why he chooses to talk to the guy when he's vacuuming or why he talks to you while you're canning. Okay? It just may have to do with, again, you're expressing something that, you're doing something that I'm looking for the similarities. You're doing something that you really don't want to do, but you're doing it out of love. And it has enough occupying your brain that he's willing to then bless you with some conversation or communication, because you're doing something, again, that you don't really want to do, and you're doing it out of love. He said that he really didn't like vacuuming. Okay? I said, great, I appreciate it. I mean, that's my best guess. I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's different, right? So, a lot of you find different ways to get in a place where you feel like you're communing a little bit with him. And that's not the same for everybody, okay?
And let me ask you this part, if I may. And I'm probably stretching it, so forgive me, but I'm just curious. Agnes's stuff, so I don't really need to explain that. But I love canning, don't get me wrong, but it's laborious. It's very laborious and very time consuming. And I wanted to take a break this year, and then I can't because all the stuff they're putting in the canned goods and foods on the stores and stuff like that.
She can't eat, right?
She can't eat it.
Right.
And so I'm literally like, every time I want to pull away, I'm kind of like how we were pulled here drastically, and it's like, okay, you don't want to do that anymore? You don't want to talk to me anymore? Boom, here you go, now you have to. And it's just, I love him, I appreciate it, and I want to talk to him. But
also, look, it's the idea of, all right, part of this walk for all of us is understanding that what Yeshua did and what we're expected to do is put others first, right? And so that means that you don't want to can, but somebody else needs it, that you love, you're going to can. Okay, so stop whining about it and complaining about it, and just appreciate that you have an opportunity to express that love for your daughter by doing something that you really don't like doing, okay? And you don't want to do it anymore, but you're kicking at it. Stop kicking at it, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Did that answer your question, Michael?
Nope, so much for my understanding of what her question was about.
Okay, you thought she was asking something else. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, she asked me that this morning, and it went a mile over my head. I was not catching that one. But a few weeks ago, we had a Torah study, and you were talking like some people come in here and they're on a stretcher or on a gurney or whatever, and I said, well, we're one of those gurney families. So the mechanisms that were going on, and I think I told you a little bit about that night, was when we came here, she was very much stuck in her wounded masculine energy, and I was very much stuck in my wounded feminine energy. We've almost got those roles flipped over. And I can see that because we've recently redone our color codes and recently did Myers-Briggs. I forget her Myers-Briggs, but her color code is now blue-red, and mine's now red-white. And my Myers-Briggs, I'll say mine because I remember it, is ISTP with an A suffix. I don't know what the suffixes are all about. I don't even understand the whole thing altogether anyway.
I'll explain it in Sukkot.
Okay. And then, so I guess my question, like, I don't know if this is a counseling thing or if it can be generally answered, but like, how do we completely get to the point where we can actually flip that over? Is this a attitude thing, a personality thing, mindset thing? I don't know where we're at on that one.
On which one? I'm not sure what the question
is. On being able to flip over the dynamic of how the family works, because there's still a lot of times where she tries to take charge, and there's still a lot of times where I'm like, I don't want to do this. Can you do it?
All right. So, look, you've got a dynamic that has been in place for a while, and so first thing is to recognize that it's wrong, and you did. Second thing is to start making an effort to fix the problem, okay? And then the next step is simply just through practice and time, it will, like you said, it's almost there because it's been moving in that direction as you've been making the effort. So it's just a matter of time, okay? Just keep doing what you're doing and it will eventually set correctly. But first step for all of you that are dealing with any of this stuff is recognizing there is a problem. So they recognized the problem, what it was, and then they started making steps, a lot of it through counseling, to understand what their role should be and how to fix some of that. Then they made the effort. And the effort has almost fixed it, not quite. And so they're getting there. So just be patiently, keep doing what you're doing, and you will get there, okay?
I guess one of my big hang-ups is like sometimes she seems to be ill or injured or something like that, and I really feel like at that moment I have to step in, because if it seems like she can't, then the kid still needs somebody. And so like I'm trying to assess like what level is an acceptable level of pain and what's not.
All right, look, now you have a second problem, okay? Okay, your second problem is that nothing is like simply black and white, okay? So your dynamic, husband-wife, is not necessarily whatever I tell you. None of you should be taking it 100% that it matches all the rest of you husbands and wives, okay? This is their situation. Because there is a lot of flavors, colors, or whatever to the whole spectrum there that make each couple individually unique. So what may be appropriate, you know, that I might say to one may not be appropriate for you guys. So you have to learn each other. What does she want you to do or not? Doesn't mean that the roles are not where they need to be. It has to do with you guys coming to that common place. I'll give you an example. This is a very mundane example, okay? My wife was raised where her father and brothers did certain things all the time, so she expected that's what all men do, and then she married me, and I don't do some of those things, right? Okay, so we had to make an adjustment in terms of how she would see me and my expectations, her expectations. Now, I'm not saying that whatever her father and brothers did was all the right thing to do, what I was doing wrong. I'm just saying it was different. So one of the things, for example, that she had in her mind that the man takes out the garbage, which I agree with 100%. But our garbage shows up at like 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, and we were in a neighborhood where you couldn't leave it out at night or the animals would get to it. okay? I happened to be working till like 3 a.m. in those days and waking up at like 11. And so she was up because she always got up early since she was a hygienist days. And so I said, look, I know the normal dynamic would be that I would do this. I said, but doesn't it make sense for you to do it since you're up? I said, I don't mind if you wake me up, I'll do it. But does it have to be so black and white? Well, men have to do this and women have, no, that's silly, okay? You guys have to be you and make adjustments to your own individual situations. So yes, I think you might need to step up sometimes, but if she's not gonna want you to step up and doesn't want you to jump in there, then you guys have to negotiate how that works, okay? So it's not wrong of you to step in and start handling the children when she's got something that's in the way, but if she doesn't want you to do it, then you have to, again, figure out your dynamic together, all right?
I wanted to say something. This came out of canning, of course. But I think part of the reason why he wants to jump in so much, and I may be totally wrong, is he met me, well, the second time we met, he saw me in such a horrible place. And I think it's anytime he sees me hurting or whatever, I think it takes him back to when he met, because he knew Paul and Marcia. He knew the stuff I was into, and I think he's trying to rescue me.
And there might be some of that. And look, he's a man, and rescuing is something men do tend to try to do. Women do that too, okay? We have our rescuing modes, all right? But the thing is, then you have to adjust to each other. Remember, I always talk about learn and adjust, right? You pay attention, you observe first. You're observing each other, so you observe that she's hurting. But you have to learn that she doesn't always want you stepping in. Okay? And so then you figure out a way to adjust to that. You also have to allow him to step in sometimes because he needs to be able to be the hero and step in. So you have to learn and adjust. I know that's hard. Okay? Yes, because adjusting is not your favorite thing. I get that. Okay? But you need to learn how to do that. Okay? Which is why I don't know how you came out ENTP, because you have no flexibility whatsoever. Okay. Okay. Did you say ISTP?
I am ISTP.
Yeah, okay, all right. And you said A?
Yes.
All right. I'm just adding you to my chart that we're trying to figure out. You're actually our first ISTP, so that's good. So we finally have
I have no idea what that means. You can explain it at Sukkot if you want to. No, I don't need it now.
No, I'm not going to. But what it means is that you drive with logic, and then your second thing would be extroverted sensing, which is sensation, which is experiencing things, liking to experience a lot of things and anything like that. So anyway, I'll get into it more when I get into all this stuff.
Okay. The last thing is I wanted to say that, second to last thing, I've been really, music's been speaking to me today. Like the last song the praise team played, it's incredible, Yahweh. Just that song, for some reason, I've heard it umpteen times since it was released. I think, what was it, last Sukkot? And like today, it found a nerve and just punched me right in that nerve. And I was like, ooh, I kind of felt that a little different this time because self-love, self-worth has been kind of an issue for me in the past. And so because I'm making progress on this, I can see the difference between now and where was I, 4 or 5 years ago when I first came here. But the other one that we were doing today, while we were on our way to services, we played the Katan Aleph song for Presentation Day and the Katan Bet song for Presentation Day. And they're both about the armor of Elohim. And I'm like, something kind of finally clicked, and I was like, we're putting on this armor of Elohim so we can do battle against Hasatan, against the adversary. But the crazy thing is, I see Hasatan every time I look in the mirror because it's really the flesh. And so if I can't master myself, he will never send me out to battle against an external opponent. We have to conquer the self first to master the self before we can master the battlefield of life. Does that sound accurate?
That would be correct. I would agree with that. But also in looking at your letter configuration, you don't have the general letters that would be self-love, okay, that have a strength in self-love. All right, so that would make sense that would be a weakness there, okay?
I'm trying. It's a conscious effort.
No, I'm just saying is that certain personalities tend to be more self-indulgent, self-aware, self-taking care of. Others do not. They're more busy taking care of other people or whatever they're doing, right? So, but when you tell me that and then I look at your letters and I'm like, well, that makes sense, okay?
Okay. And finally, I wanted to thank you because throughout these years, even though we're one of those Gurney families that came in and we were on life support basically when we came in, We've made such growth and progress in this journey, in this walk, that a lot of times I see you taking your hands off now, and like especially when we're in counseling and she has a hard question, you say, go to your husband, ask your husband, did you talk to your husband about this? Because like I just see that progress and see that growth, and I want to thank you for that, especially because I have seen it before where other people, when they're getting ready to leave the ministry, will say, that's an inappropriate relationship for him to have. He shouldn't be counseling other people's wives without their husbands present. And I'm like, I'm okay with it. But it's gotten to the point where it's not necessary anymore. And so thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And often enough, when she does come to me, she's already talked to you, and she says, this is what Michael said, this is what's going on. And so, so that's already been done properly. See, that's gotten fixed as well. Okay? So good job there. Maybe I need to kind of just covering a little bit. I think we have a little problem with this out there, okay? In the relationships, okay, so a husband with a wife, the husband does cover the wife. I think we're getting a little bit out of balance in thinking that a wife can't talk to leadership without you there, okay? The leadership should be able to talk to either of you, you're adults, all right? However, the leadership should not usurp the role of the husband. So when a wife comes to us, she may be dealing with something she's not ready to talk to her husband about and doesn't know how to talk to him, and she needs to talk to somebody. Or the problem is the husband, and she doesn't know how to handle that. And then we do bring the husbands in as we, should and do all the time. But just adults, same thing with children. Some of you have children that are adult children. 18 to me is adult children. In this country, that child can live on their own, they're an adult. That means that they can and should be able to come to the leadership by themselves, okay? And not have a parent say, well, you didn't come to me. Well, they're an adult. But you say that, that while they're in my house or whatever, they're covered. Yes, about things in your house. They also live outside your house, and they work and they do other things, and they have issues that they might want to discuss that they don't need to talk to mommy or daddy about as they're trying to figure out their adulthood, their independence, all right? Now, when they're in your house, your rules of your house, that is the covering, and I would never usurp that or tell them not to listen and follow that, okay? But I have talked to some of your adult children, and some of you are very comfortable with that. Janet lets me talk to her children, etc., and it goes very well, and it's part of that growth process. Because look, it's kind of like when Yeshua went to his own town, nobody cared. He didn't get anywhere, didn't heal anybody, because they didn't accept him that way. Sometimes mom and dad are not the people that can get the things through to their kids. It has to come from somewhere else, okay? Because they just have a certain tone deafness to parents, okay, based on their growing up and everything else. And I'll say exactly what the parent said, but because it was somebody else saying it, then sometimes it makes a difference, all right? So let's understand covering from that point of view, okay? We provide a covering for all of you up to a certain extent in terms of things like if you come and ask for counsel, and we provide that guidance and that kind of thing to keep you safe and protect you the best we can, all right? But never should this leadership ever be perceived or actually function in any way that usurps any real authority. Problem is some of you think that we're doing it when we're not, okay? Well, why would you go talk to my wife and you didn't come to me first? Because it had nothing to do with you. It had to do with her, and she's an adult, and I don't need to talk to you first. If you want me to bring you in, we can, and I could do that in the future, but I can't tell your wife that she can't come to us. Well, I don't want her to. That's between you and her. Do you understand that that's a different kind of problem? If you don't want your wife to talk to us without you, that's between you and her. We're not going to turn her away because you want us to. We can't. Okay, as a ministry, we can't. All right? Well, I don't want her doing that. That's a problem between you and her. Okay, your child comes, you don't want your child doing that. That's between you and the child. The child is 18, 19, or 20, we will talk to them. All right? They're adults. You don't like it? That's between you and them. I'm not saying no. You have a problem with that, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to usurp whatever your rules you want to put into place. That's between you and them. We have an open door for all adults, okay? Male, female, married or not married, child or this or that, all adults can come here freely and talk to us. If you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's the way it has to be, all right? If you have a problem with that with a family member, then that's between you and them. I don't want you talking to them without me. Fine. By the way, we've heard that a lot. Okay? And some of that's done somewhat abusively because it's a control thing. Okay? Where the spouse really wants to talk because the problem is the other spouse and now they feel like they can't come. You have to have an open door. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't know if you agree with it or not, but does it make sense? Okay? We have to have an open door. Okay? I will promise you that I will make every effort not to do anything that usurps you. And I'm almost always with elder, or at least with elder, with all those conversations as a witness to what we're doing. Okay? And he can tell you, I try not to usurp anything. We both try very hard to say, what did your husband say? Did you talk to him? Blah, 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 blah. What did your parents say? Did you talk to them? Always. Okay, always. But we cannot, as a ministry, turn away an adult. Okay, maybe again, we need to set the expectations. I'm setting the expectations for you. Okay, you should expect that I will talk to anyone who's of adult age, period. Okay? If you don't want that to happen, that's between you and them. Okay? All right, so I just wanted to make sure that was clarified, because I mean, these things do come up. Okay? And that's why Michael said that. Look, I've talked to Ashley without him. I've talked to him without her. I've talked to both of them a lot. Okay? I've actually talked to the little children by themselves, because sometimes they think it's cool to come and talk to me. Like, I want to talk to Rabbi, and then, and so they just sit there telling me some stories or whatever. They think I'm their grandfather anyway. So, but if you can't trust us, then you have a problem being here. Okay? I mean, that really is a problem. I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying I'm just letting you know up front. Anybody 18 or older wants to come and talk to us, we will take the appointment, okay? And we are not going to tell you about it unless they tell you about it or want us to tell you about it. It's their appointment. They're an adult. Maybe you're the issue they want to talk about. They should feel free to do that. I think that's the only fair way to go, okay? All right, otherwise I'm being a respecter of persons and some other thing. Everybody's household has different rules too. Clearly Michael and Ashley have no problem with it, where another couple may have a total problem with it. I can't adjust to everybody and remember everybody's rules. Okay, simple for me. You're an adult, I'll talk to you. That's easy. Straight across the board, all right? All right, next, Janet.
Rabbi, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And even for mental health, I mean, you don't need to be an adult. Sometimes you can even receive services as long as you're close to your 18-year birth, so. That's
yeah, but I just go with 18.
Yeah, it's not
anybody under 18, if the parents has said that they can, that's fine. Okay, I do want parents' permission. Anybody under 18, hey, did you talk to your parents? Is it okay? Now, if it's an urgency because the child is accusing the parent of something and they really don't know what to do, then we may talk to them and figure out what we need to do and then make sure we bring in the parent or something. But if it's just life stuff that they want to talk about, they just may be embarrassed to talk to their parents about, they may come to us, okay? Because they may be too embarrassed to share it with you because they're afraid you'll blow up in their face. And so, aren't you at least happy to have somebody they could talk to? You know, I'm just saying. All right, Janet.
We have been very blessed because Valentina is already an adult, but she's been counseling with you since she was, 14, 15. And we were happy that she had you, to talk to. So that was a blessing. I have a question, and I appreciate what you said about the journey being a belief. It's a faith kind of journey. And because I don't know when it was, it may have been a few years back, but I got the thought, what if this is not true, And I was like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't even have that thought, like that's not right. Am I sinning against Yahweh? But that was
everybody has that thought
yes.
at some point.
Okay. Yes.
Look, I'll give you a simple answer. I should have added it to my story. With my two experiences twice, right? The two things twice. I believe 100% that this is true. But I also believe that if it turns out not to be true, this was still the best way to live. Do you understand what I'm saying? If this turns out at the end not to be true, it still was the best successful way to functionally handle living in this place. Okay, this existence. It gave me the most peace, the most understanding of how to treat people, the most understanding about having hope and faith, which helps you stay alive and optimistic and those kind of things. So if this turns out to not be exactly true, I'm okay with that because I know it works, at least for me. And I've seen it work for lots of people, which is why I teach it, right? Okay? So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I'm doing this on faith. This is what I believe. But I also have the strength of saying, well, because people say, well, what if it's not true? Well, then I'm still happy with my choice. Okay? Because I've lived without this and it didn't work very well. Twice. All right? When I say twice, I don't mean like when I was a little kid. I mean, I was an adult into my 30s without it. Okay? Then I was with it. And then I was without it for basically 7 years. That's a nice long time to see the contrast, okay? And so just kind of giving you that perspective, you know? There was a few years in my late 20s where I had some of it, but then I was really not. Okay, it was just a little window. And so I just want you to understand that I have adult comparisons as an adult seeing life. So like when you ask that question, well, what if this isn't real? Everybody at some point asks that question, all right? And so first of all, if there's a creative being, which I think is really not even an argument, okay, then I can't believe that creator being, who knows that this is where you grew up and what you experienced and what you understood and what you were shown, I can't believe that creator being, okay, is going to have a big problem with you questioning things, knowing full well that this is a faith thing. So if it's a faith thing, of course there's going to be moments of a crisis of faith. Everybody's going to have their little crisis of faith, okay, where they wonder and doubt and question. So don't think for a second to be like, oh, so you're questioning me now. Okay, well, zap. Okay, so, come on. Okay, how dare you question? Okay? All right, go ahead.
I love that, Rabbi. Thank you. And I don't know what happened with that last song. Brianna, I don't know what Brianna is, but oh my gosh, that brought so much healing and such a level of...
Well, I came up at the end of the song, and she was just about finished, and I didn't know if she could hear me, but I said to her, do the chorus again, okay? And I couldn't know, and she heard me, but I also didn't get to say what I wanted to say, which was, but don't then go to the fast part again. Just keep it slow and just end. And she did it exactly as like she almost read my mind and knew what I was trying to say. But I just felt like we needed to do it one more time. Like it wasn't enough. I think everybody wasn't finished with the song, And that's what I was feeling, and I kind of felt the room was in that mode. So I kind of just said to her, do the chorus again, And it was perfect. It was beautiful. All right, go ahead.
It was beautiful. And talking about when you said, I sense the energy in the room. Okay, so I'm an ESTJ according to the test, the 16 personality that Sarah Beth has been promoting around here that I actually appreciate. But with the S letter, the intuitive part is also, because it's almost like 51%, 49%, something like that in my breakdown of the letters. So is the intuitive part the part that we'll see, not focused just on the sensing, but also on the energy? Is that part of the N letter, like when you're able to sense, like...
No, energy sensing is, again, sensing. Okay, that's an S.
Oh, okay.
Because you already used the word right in there. It said sensing the energy, all right? But for you, just so you know, as a psychology person and you understand these kind of things, this is just the 4 letters of your ego, okay? You also have a subconscious, unconscious, and superego. Okay, so there's actually 4 different letter configurations that make up all of you in a much. That's why this is so complex. I never did it before, because it's really very complex, all right? Because some of you may be behaving and experiencing things in a certain way, and it doesn't show up in your 4 letters because it's coming out of your basically your unconscious or your shadow, and it's not coming out of your normal ego thing. Some of you are like, what in the world is he talking about? I will try to explain this in October, okay? But for Janet, who understands things like, Jungian, psychology and the idea of the ego and the superego and the subconscious, unconscious, okay? So you really don't just have this 4 letters. You have 4 sets, okay? But this is the ones that are the strongest, most active, primarily most of the time, okay? It's in your conscious, normal configuration. However, you may have some that like to pop up and drive whenever things are not exactly happy in your system or whatever, and then they can really be problematic, okay? All right, and you will understand it very well when we get there.
Thank you, Rabbi. This is helpful. I can't wait for that. Okay, so the question I had was about 1 Corinthians 13:7, the whole section on love. Okay, so love covers all, believes all, expects all, and endures all. And it's a little bit with going along with our last counseling when you were talking to me about the difference between loving somebody and liking somebody.
Yes.
So you can
1
still...
Corinthians 13.
Yes.
Yeah.
So okay, so love covers all. To me, it's like, okay, you can forgive everything. I mean, we should forgive, right? But when it says believes all, expects all, endures all, what if you're not really believing that person may change? Are you still loving that person even if you're not believing?
Okay, not believing them when they claim something. You believe that they can get there. You believe in them, okay? You're not believing everything they say because people run a lot of nonsense to you and it's totally not true. You're not believing everything. But it believes that you can get there, that you can grow into Yeshua. I mean, it believes optimistically, okay?
Okay, I got that. And expects all is similar, right? It's related. If you're believing, you're expecting.
To have positive expectation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then what about endures all? Like
endures all means that you can tolerate everything that they put at you because that's what love requires. That you have to be able to handle all of those things that can be very tough and challenging, but you're going to handle it, okay?
But handling could also mean setting a distance without necessarily being in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
All right? But endures means that you still love them. Now look, let me deal with, I don't know if I said this only to Janet or whenever I got to say this, but it's a really cool sort of distinction about liking and loving, okay? You got to have to, this is going to mess with how you talk to your spouse and whatever, okay? Well, not so much your spouse, but other people and other things. Love, you ready? I'm going to redefine these things for you. Because I think that we have a real problem with love and like, okay? And desire and that kind of thing. Okay. You don't love that which is not yours, okay? You love what's yours. That's why you're supposed to love your wife, because it's like she's part of you and your husband's part of you. They're yours now, okay? Your children you should automatically love because they're yours. They are yours by default. You made them. That's your fault. Okay, that's default. Okay? All right? So love has nothing to do with liking. You love it because it's yours. Okay? And so we like our spouses before we marry them. We don't marry them because we love them. Oh, I'm so in love with him. No, you're not. You're in like with him. You can't love till you actually get married and then they're yours. Now you have to have a whole different level of endures all, believes all, expects all, and all this optimism and all this other stuff, okay? So I don't believe, and this you can get all mad and disagree with me, I don't think you're in love before you get married. That's a word that society has come up with all romantically and this whole thing. No, you're in like and in desire because you believe that you could love someone, that they could be yours and you could love them, okay? But if they don't become yours, you're not going to love them. You're going to move on to somebody else, okay? And so love has ownership to it. So when we have to have love for one another, we have to have ownership that you are my brother, you are my sister. It's a different relationship, okay? And liking has nothing to do with it. Some of you do not like your spouses sometimes, okay? I have said to my wife, or she has said to me, I don't like you very much right now, but I still love you. That's important that you throw that in there, though. I'm not real happy with you right now because whatever happened affected a like thing. I don't like it. But if I love you, liking doesn't matter, okay? Because you're mine. So it doesn't change the fact that you're still mine. This is really challenging in marriages. They really end up going, into some challenges. You got to decide if you love that person or you just got married because you like them and then you were in like for a bunch of years and then you realize, you know what, I don't really like them enough to stay here because you never actually got to the love part. Okay? Love is a tough level. Okay, the love that we're talking about here is a tough level. And so, people get divorced because they never got to the love part. They were in like, and they married each other because they liked each other, and they desired each other, and they, thought it might be a good idea, but they didn't have that love. Okay? And that's the challenging place. So I'm not saying because you, quote unquote, are married that you have to stay married no matter what. I'm just saying is, if you reach the love level, then love covers all these things. Okay? But not everybody ever gets their relationship to the love level. That's why we're so transient in our relationships. Is that making sense to anybody? Okay? That is why we are so transient in our relationships. Okay? Well, I want to marry him. Why? Because I love him. No, you don't. You like him. And you desire him. And all this other stuff emotionally. But you don't love him yet. Love comes after ownership. Okay? And by ownership, I don't mean just because you made vows. I mean when you actually take ownership, like this is me. This is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. This is my wife. This is my husband. I own this now. This is part of me. Okay? Which means that it can be really rough. It could be a roller coaster with a lot of bumps, but I still love you. Okay? Okay? Now, even those who were in a relationship that got so challenging where you couldn't stay in the relationship, if you loved them, you'll still love them. Even when you're not married to them anymore. Even like if your child becomes like some kid that doesn't ever talk to you anymore, you still love them. Even though you have no way to interact with them because there's no way for you to function because it's so toxic, but you still love them. Okay? Is that what I talked about with you? Okay. That's exactly what I said. You know what? I have to tell you something I discovered this morning. I was going to tell Elder this. I forgot to say it. I was going to say it right after the zone meeting. I've got to do a better job of listening to my teachings. Because there are things that I've said that I only said in the teaching, and then someone will ask a question, and I have to remember it. And I only said it once. And I'm like, so someone will take me to Romans or wherever, and I'm like, okay, I know I covered this 3 or 4 times. What did I say? And I can't remember always. Because it's not what I studied and wrote down and everything else. It's what he gave me as it's coming out of my mouth. So I'm going to now make an effort to go back and re-listen to my teaching so I can remember these cool things that he gives me to say. So sometimes when you see me struggle to answer a question that you know I've already answered, it's because it only came out of my mouth that one time and I don't remember what I said. Not completely, if you know what I mean. I kind of know, but I'm like, what did I say? Give me the answer again, All right? That's sort of the nature of not having notes. I'm just reading it and then he gives me some answer, something cool and just really lights it all up. And I'm like, what did I say? We had a new guy today on the zone meeting and he was like asking all these questions like, go listen to the teaching. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I answered it better there. I don't remember what I said. Remember, I told you guys, before you start teaching stuff, okay, you should be listening to the teachings enough so that you know it back and forth so that you can answer questions and all those kind of things. All right? Now, when I teach, it's a little different on account of that he sometimes gives it to me as I'm speaking, and that's great. But now I realize I got to go back and re-listen to it so it's deeper into my head so I can remember how I answered it. So that's going to solve my problem of like Friday nights and Saturday wanting to listen to teachings. I just keep putting my stuff on until I get it more ingrained,
Okay, so I have a Passover covenanted covering question.
Okay, I need your first name again so I can remember.
Nadia.
Nadia, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I got into this walk, got into this journey, and I'm like, everything I ever learned, I feel like I need to unlearn it. But I was sad, and then I'm like, okay, I got this. Abba's talking to me, he popped my bubble, we can do this. Then I started really, really thinking, reading, learning, studying. Passover is coming. Right. And I'm like, am I covenanted? So I watched Are You Covenanted? And initially I didn't even realize that Passover is one of those meals that you have to be covenanted in order to sit at that table. So I watched more of your videos and I'm like, oh, okay, so covenanted men go through circumcision. So I had the question, well, what do women do? Because I'm trying to get more into that doing versus being.
Right.
So I watched another video. I ended up watching an afterburn, and someone had the same question. And your response was along the lines of, well, you'll be covered by your father, covered by your husband. I'm not married. My father is not on this walk. I'm not covered. So
In the video, I didn't say then the last choice would be us.
I think, yeah, you said leadership.
Okay.
So then my question is, but does that just automatically happen because I'm here, or is there something I need to do?
Yeah, we don't get hung up on formalities, okay? When it comes to the ladies, okay? Ladies, don't get upset about this, but you are scripturally always referred to as a part of a man, whether it's your father or your husband or some leadership as a part of something. So that's where your covenant covering comes from. As far as you being covenanted without having that covering in the other relationships, your covenant is really that relationship that we talked about in that series as a level of commitment between you and him. I can't know if you're covenanted or not. You can go ahead and, men who are circumcised, I have no idea if they're actually covenanted. They have a sign of the covenant. Back when I was a kid, every kid that came out of the hospital got circumcised, whether you were, and it was done on the first day, not on the 8th day. Okay, mine was done on the 8th day, but babies were just automatically circumcised back in the 60s, okay? And so it's a sign of something that may be there, but just because you have it doesn't mean that it's there, right? So we ask people to self-examine and say, look, if you're covenanted, you can come and have the meal. Okay, now if you're a man, you need to be circumcised unless there's a reason you can't be. And there's medical reasons why some people under certain health conditions can't have that done, all right? And as a woman, we would encourage you that you would get mikvah'd, which is a sign of your covenant, because you make the covenant declarations, okay? If you're gonna do Passover and we are doing the mikvah a couple of days later, that's fine. You can still eat the meal and then do the mikvah after, because it's simply a sign of a covenant. Circumcision is also the sign of something that should already be there, which is why if you're in a condition where you can't get circumcised, that's fine. You can still come to the meal, because it's not that it's a won't, it's a can't, all right? And so for the ladies, I know if you believe you're covenanted, you can come to the meal, and I just encourage you to get in the water as fast as the availability is to get in the water.
Perfect. That answered all of my questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Miss Marlene.
I really appreciate her. I'm glad she's with us. She's a blessing. Yay. Okay, so I had a question from Torah study last night, and it didn't get read because we had to cut it off. So I'm going to ask my question now. I'm looking at the live stream chat. Yahweh is so awesome with us having to do the Torah portion every year, because every year something new pops out. So this year, thank you, Rebbeson, for the fantastic presentation. It just makes it so real and so just pop out, So what dawned on me this time was, and I think you talked about it in the afterburn, was that they had to know there was a price that they had to pay. And I think you talked about it this morning too. There's a price that had to be paid for their sin. And so like in Christianity, Yeshua did it all. So it's like we don't have any more price. And so then I started thinking, well, there probably should be a price. And so now I'm thinking about, this is my question. How do we now make restitution for a sin that has been revealed? Because what popped out was...
Didn't I basically answer that this morning? Wasn't that basically the question the person asked?
I don't think so. I listened to the question.
Okay. I'll answer it again anyway, but I thought I pretty much answered that.
Well, I was wondering if it should be monetary or voluntary. Oh, you talked about the tzedakah box and stuff like that. Oh, okay. So I
did
guess,
answer it this morning.
I guess you did.
Yeah.
I guess you did answer that.
That's okay. But these people who didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, the sacrificial system, first of all, you need to understand that there are many ways. The sacrificial system was one of them. Repentance is one of them, that you can have your sins forgiven, okay? Because people say, oh no, you can't have your sins forgiven. The temple service didn't forgive any sins. Yes, it did. What it didn't do was provide the redemption that would allow for you to have life after death, okay? So you could have forgiveness of sins, which would, as a nation, when they were doing things, would help them have blessings and not cursings, right? So there was forgiveness of sin for that, but it didn't change the fact that you sinned, you were going to end up dead. Yeshua then provided the opportunity to now live beyond death, okay? And that's what the difference is between what he did and what the temple was doing. So, because a lot of times people would think like, well, they didn't have forgiveness of sin, and thinking those animals. Well, it actually literally says that when they did these things, their sins were forgiven. Okay, like that's part of temple service. Okay. Now, on the other side of it, it was, if you think about it, I use the example of the swear jar some of you guys had in the house, where somebody said something that the parents said was not appropriate, and you had to put $1 in the jar, a quarter in the jar, whatever it was back in whatever age when a quarter was a lot of money, okay? But you had to put something in the jar. Because they wanted the idea being, after a while, it's getting a little expensive, you may just start to watch what you're doing, okay? Well, if you have to take a goat or a sheep or a bull, this is expensive stuff to bring to pay the price for some mistake that you made, okay? So you might be a little bit more aware and more vigilant about what you're doing. So there's a price, okay? And that's really was part of the point. So now what do we do today? We don't have a temple system. So my point was, I said, one of the things that the Jewish community does is they have this understanding of when you go to ask for something, when you go in prayer to the Father, when you go to ask for something, the first thing you do is you go to the tzedakah box in your house, which is a charity box you keep in your house, and you put something in there, because why would you ask for something without giving first, okay? And that's just a mindset they have. So everybody in the house has their own, or the house has their own as a house or whatever. They just do this thing with the tzedakah box. So that you're saying to God, I'm going to ask for something, but I'm willing to give something first to provide for others before I ask for something for me. Now, so how would that work when when you find yourself messing, whatever it is, and there's not really a cost to it? Well, what if you made a commitment that every time that I make this mistake, I'm going to then put a certain amount in the tzedakah box, so to speak? So make it costly to me. That's something you could choose to do. I'm not recommending it or saying that it's a new policy here. I'm just saying it's an idea that you may want to use, because there is leverage in cost, okay? Some of you in your lives have already, if not you will at some point, make an expensive mistake, okay? I have, okay? I think pretty much everybody has done something that costs more than $500, okay? An expensive mistake, all right? And so that happens. And then you know what? You probably don't make that same mistake more than once, because you learn, that was bad. That cost me a lot. Whatever I did, that was dumb. I wasn't paying attention. I wrecked the car. I did some other thing it was my fault, and it was an expensive mistake, okay? I'm not talking about things that happened by accident that weren't your. I'm saying you made a mistake that cost you, all right? And so you learn from that. So now if you're doing stuff and struggling with, say, this is maybe good for you guys that are really struggling with something, figure out a way to make it cost you every time you do it, and then maybe that'll help stop you from doing it, okay? I don't know how to put this for you. You know what, I think this will kind of be I was gonna say for the men, but you know what, ladies have this problem too. One of the biggest problems, most consistent problems out there is porn addiction. And one of the reasons is because it's so easy to access for free. You don't have to pay anything. There's no cost. It used to be back in the days, people had to go to like a store and buy a magazine, and people would see them, and you'd have to pay a price, or you'd have to go to the worst part of town into some seedy district and do whatever. Not that I did, I'm saying, but you were aware of these things back in New York City. They had the 42nd Street and all the other stuff that was going on in Times Square. Okay, and people knew not to go around those areas because they had all the stuff going on. But there was a price to pay. Socially, financially, there was a price to pay. Now people just go on their phones, nobody knows what they're doing, they can do whatever they want. So you want to break that habit? Every time you catch yourself doing that, what if you put $100 in a box somewhere that was going to be then donated? Or something that would cost you. But you have to commit to actually do that. Make it cost a price. I never had this idea before. I think that it's inspired by you. I think that might be something that might really help somebody. Get a box in your house that you're going to donate that money after you put money in there for the month or whatever. But if you go ahead and screw up and you go and do this thing that you're trying to break the habit of, and it could be anything. I used porn as one choice. It could be any habit you're trying to break. If you mess up and do the thing you're trying to break, put a price in that you know is going to motivate you. Make it cost. All right? Make it cost. Because back then, if it cost you a ram or a bull or a sheep, that's a lot. Okay? That's a lot of cost. Go ahead.
Okay, so what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that since we're not doing a sacrificial system as far as specifically what is required for the particular offense, we should just pray about it and maybe come up with something. You know, what about acts of service or something like that?
No, anything. I mean, you know, if I do this, then I owe this many hours of community service or service, something that you're not already doing. Something that you don't really want to do, but it's good and it's a punishment to you, even though it's a blessing to somebody else. So it costs you. It has to cost you, all right? Okay, it has to cost you. So whatever it is, the whole point is to leverage. The temple service was part of it was a leverage. Part of it was it fed the priests and did other things, but it was a leverage. I mean, Yahweh didn't need the animals killed, okay? But the people, you know, had leveraging, you know, saying, wow, this is getting expensive. We better start paying better attention to what we're doing here. Okay?
Okay, so another thought that just popped in my head was, do you think...
I try to avoid that as much as I can.
Do you think that part of the cursing that we may have received and may be receiving right now from our past sins or whatever, do you think that maybe Yahweh has allowed a manifestation in financial hardship or even like acts of service or us having some kind of hardships that we have to, like allowing us to stay in a hardship as somewhat restitution for these other things that we've done that we haven't had. Let's say we did something nobody found out about.
Okay, but the hardships are not restitution, okay? It's leverage. If you look back at your life and go, how did I end up in this financial mess or this whatever mess that I'm in, my health mess? Because maybe your health mess is something that you did and you can fix just by adjusting because you've been eating wrong or doing this wrong or whatever. Okay, so it's leverage. The curses are leverage. When he says, if you don't listen, I'll curse you 7 times more. And he says, if you're not instructed by these, I'll curse you 7 times. It's meant to be instructional and leverage to get your attention that there's a problem you're not addressing, okay? So it's not about restitution, okay? He's not about, well, you made this mistake, so you got to pay the price. No, he wants you to pay the price so you don't keep making the mistake. So it's about leverage. It's not about compensation, okay?
So can we look at some of the things that we've gone through, like negative consequences, or maybe not a consequence? Look at it like a consequence that...
No, it's a consequence of your actions, but it's meant to get your attention to fix the problem. It's leveraging your head. It's like, okay, you're not paying attention the first time that this happened and you kind of couldn't pay your bills real good, and then the next time they got even worse. Until it's going to keep getting worse until you realize, oh, I need to address this. Or your health. These are like the 2 ones. Or your marriage and your relationships. Whatever's being neglected is going to go bad to get your attention until you give it attention. Okay? Does that make sense for everybody? All right.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that finally sunk in. Thank you.
Good, okay? So I don't want you to think that, you know, he's making you pay a price. You're paying a price as leverage to get your attention, okay? It's not like he's punishing you and saying, pay the price and here's your penalty. No, the things going badly and everything is to get your attention so that you are leveraged to fix the problem. And that's what it's about, is being leveraged to fix the problem. Amen? All right, Grayson.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So my question is coming from Revelation chapter 20, verse 10. And it's like a 2-part question. And the first one is, if like the devil, like Hasatan, is like serving the function of being the adversary to our fleshly desires, why is he then punished for doing the job he was given? And then the second part is, you've always taught that the lake of fire is something that when you're thrown into, it quickly comes to like a flame and then it's done. And then at the end of chapter 10, it says, and they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever.
Okay, so this is a complex question from the point of view that I'd have to identify some characters in the story here that I don't have time to actually identify. Okay, the beast and the false prophet, okay, as being other than just human beings, okay? Okay, in which case they could live through the burning of the fire, as the devil would as well, okay? However, when we're looking at this, I never said that Hasatan was hired to do this job, but because of his disposition to be this kind of a character, the Father has allowed him to do this job because it serves a function for him. So it's not like he said, hey, I need you to go ahead and drive people crazy and pick on all their things and expose all their weaknesses. Hasatan thinks he's trying to ruin all you people. But it serves a purpose that Yahweh uses, and so it's useful up to a point. That at this point in Revelation 20 is not needed anymore, okay? So now at this point, finally, he gets what he's supposed to get or whatever the Father had planned to give him, now that his usefulness is finally not there anymore, okay? Does that make sense? All right? So it's not so much that, he was created to do these things. According to what we understand, he started off fine and he turned. Fine. When he turned, Father said, I can use that. So I'm going to allow that to play out for a while because it's useful to me. Because it will help me to understand and teach everybody who exists to understand themselves, to see what they're made out of and whether they're, temptable in some way, to do things they shouldn't do, whatever. Okay, that rebellious thing. But by the time we get to 20, it's over. Okay? And now that it's over, because you get, a few more verses and you get the new heaven and new earth in 21. I mean, it's over. And so all of the antagonists are thrown in the fire and that part has been finished. Okay?
And then so who are the false prophets if they're not people?
No, it's not false prophets. There's actually a character that's described in Revelation as the false prophet and one called the beast.
Okay, so that's not referring to people just...
So they're beings that we interact with during this revelation period of time, during the tribulation period of time, that are referred to as the beast and the false prophet, all right? And so it's not just false prophets in general. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That clears it up a lot.
Again, but to explain who they are and all that other thing, that's a whole different can of worms that we're not opening today, okay? All right. Rick.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Last night we were talking about why the male and the female critters were getting sacrificed. And this morning we mentioned it. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe Abba knew that we had to balance the herd and the flock.
Well, that could be it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Of course, I asked that question this morning about it, and Rebbe and I were like, it doesn't really say why certain ones you could use a female and certain ones had to be a male of the flock or the herd or whatever it was. So, but it could be a balancing out of the herd type of thing.
Okay, next. The eighth commandment just states you will not steal. All right, in Proverbs 6, 30 and 31, he mentions, now if you steal because you're hungry, there's a price. You got to pay back 7 times. Actually, it says if you're starving, but you got to pay back 7 times, even if it costs you everything. My question is, was because of Solomon's influence, King Solomon's influence with the other nations, was this a watering down of the commands?
I never really thought of this verse in context with the commandments. I haven't been in Proverbs for a little while here. Usually in chapter 6, I'm over by 16, which is where the 6 things Yahweh hates. So, look, he may be saying that when we're talking about life and death, okay, then this could happen. If it happens, then hey, you're going to need to repay it. So he's certainly not saying that you should just do this, okay, because it's going to cost you 7 times, all right? The commandment, the 8th commandment, is mostly talking about dealing with taking what doesn't belong to you because you want it, you desire it, it's greed, it's some other problem that way, all right? Now, I'm not saying that in desperation, if you're actually broke and poor and this and you can't feed yourself, that you're going to go ahead and steal something, all right? Which most people would do. I think that's kind of things that we don't look forward to, but we know might happen when we get to the real end times, and supplies and foods and other things become in short supply, that people might start running around looking for your food and taking yours and taking you and maybe killing you to get it or whatever, because they get desperate. Hungry people do desperate things, okay? But he is saying is, look, if he steals to satisfy his appetite when he's starving, okay, yet when he's caught, okay, he repays sevenfold. And he gives all the wealth of his house. So he's saying, look, if you're going to do this, understand that you're probably going to get caught. When you get caught, you're going to lose everything, okay? So it's not really worth doing. So this is kind of saying, hey, you guys out there to think, hey, this is an excuse? I think he's actually backing up the commandment, okay? Hey, desperate times, desperate situation, but you need to know if you do that, it says if you get caught, but these guys, generally you're going to get caught. People get caught. Nobody really gets away with anything, okay? Maybe you do something only once, but usually if you get away with it once, you're going to keep doing it, okay? And then it becomes a thing that's going to eventually get you caught. He's saying you're going to lose everything, okay? You're going to pay it back sevenfold, and he's going to give all not just sevenfold, everything you've got is going. So I think it was a discouragement, okay? I don't think it was a watering down. I think it was a discouragement, okay? All right, perfect timing because we're now at 5:27 and you were the last one, so that worked out beautifully. All right, so that's zone 1 for this month.